Hello, friends. Welcome back to another moment of reflection with Iyah Iyah. Today, we ask a hard question. What happens to a nation when propaganda becomes the only policy that truly works? When storytelling replaces governance and image making substitutes for real solutions? Let us begin. Nigeria today is wrestling with painful realities: rising insecurity, communities facing violence, military men being abducted and killed, citizens battling severe economic hardship, and a widening gap between the people and the policies meant to serve them. Yet, rather than confronting these issues with clarity and courage, what we often witness is a government more invested in controlling the narrative than in addressing the nation's wound. Friends, before we go deeper, let's step back and ask, what is propaganda? In philosophy, propaganda is understood as the strategic use of communication to shape perception, stir emotions, and direct behavior, not through truth, but through manipulation. Thinkers like Jacques Ellul describe it as a machinery that simplifies complex realities into digestible myths so that people feel rather than think, so that people will react rather than question. Friends, propaganda is not just lying. Sometimes it tells partial truth. Its real danger is that it removes the citizen's ability to judge. It becomes a fog over the public mind. Friends, in Nigeria's today, or in today's Nigeria, rather, the growing sense of insecurity in many communities, especially the Christian communities, where sometimes Christians, Muslims, and rural urban dwellers demand honest confrontation, not distractions. Families are grieving, citizens are grinding under economic pressure. Yet, rather than transparency, Nigerians often hear public relations campaigns, spins, and political speeches that do more to damage optics than to solve problems. Sure, to manage optics, I meant to say, than to solve problems. When propaganda becomes a substitute for policy, it creates the illusion of progress, like the economic progress and the milestone that they are claiming. While the grounds beneath the people continue to shake, it transforms national pain into a public relation challenge, which is bad. And it is the people, ordinary citizens, who pay for this with their safety, with their dignity, and with their daily bread. When propaganda fails, we have to reflect back from lessons of yesterday. Throughout history, propaganda eventually collapses when it loses its last ally, which is reality. Let's recall a few examples of where propaganda failed. The Soviet Union in the late 1980s. For decades, the state projected an image of strength and economic success. But the truth of shortages, stagnation, and political repression eventually pierced through. When reality became undeniable, propaganda could no longer contain the public's discontent, and the system fell under its own contradiction. Now let's look back at the Nazi Germany in 1945. One of the most powerful propaganda machines in human history was seen and experienced during this period. That still couldn't save the regime. Once its military failures, economic strains, and moral atrocities became visible to everyone, propaganda can buy time, but it cannot buy salvation. The third reflection we are having today is about what happened in the apartheid South Africa during the Pretoria regime. For years, the apartheid regimes in South Africa used state media and censorship to justify racial oppression, but global awareness and internal resistance and more clarity dismantled the facade. Friends, when the world sees injustice clearly, propaganda's power naturally dissolves. Now, the final was the example of the Arab Spring between the year 2010 to 2012. Several governments tried to suppress public frustration with grand narratives of stability and progress. But when young people could no longer reconcile their lived experience with official stories, the engulfing wave of protests revealed the limits of controlling the narrative. This is the lesson I might take. No regime survives on image making alone. Sooner or later, the truth demands to be heard. Friends, Nigeria is too important, too gifted, and too full of promise to rely on propaganda as a governing strategy. As we are experiencing today, our people deserve transparency in addressing insecurity. They deserve honesty. They deserve, economic policy that is rooted in human dignity. They deserve leaders that are more invested in truth than in political theater. A nation cannot heal with propaganda. A nation cannot heal while pretending it's not wounded. And governance cannot succeed while reality is treated as an enemy. Friends, the purpose of today's reflection is not despair. It's not for despair, but for clarity. The more we understand how propaganda works, the more we reclaim our power as citizens, especially in Nigeria. Our task is to stay awake, to see clearly, and to demand that politics rooted in truth and humanity is what is projected and sustained. May we continue to think, may we continue to question and to stand for justice in Nigeria. Like the Christian genocide that is ongoing in Nigeria and the denial of government and its propaganda machinery, which is a shame. Friends, this is the Iyah Iyah Perspectives. I'm happy you tuned in. Until next time, please stay conscious. And if this message resonates with you, I urge you to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.